This is what I love about making home brew videos, but more specifically, my beloved subscribers be like, oh, the Beardyman, he's just come out with a bottling video. Yes! He's gonna give us some tips and techniques around bottling. Yes! Before all of that, I'm going to paint this wall and we're going to watch the paint dry. Actually, do you know what? Skip the painting. I'll save that for another episode. So it can be a very special occasion for a home brewer to pop the cap on the first bottle of a new batch of beer, to hear the hiss, to see the smoke dancing out of the top of the bottle. Senses ignite when the aroma of hops and malt hit. You taste that cold homebrew. You close your eyes and you say, ah, yes. That's of course you've done everything correctly between the end of fermentation and packaging of your homebrew. Getting to that first sip of a new conditioned homebrew involves a lot of hard but well-earned work. Cleaning and sanitizing 60 bottles as well as a bottling bucket and all your bottling gear can take a fair amount of time. When you're done bottling, then you need to store those bottles away for about 2 weeks before you can even taste one sup. Now, bottle conditioning is my preferred choice of packaging when it comes to bottles, as you can also keg the beer, force carbonate it, and then transfer that to your bottles. That's not really for me. But I believe that you get better carbonation and flavors from a beer when you bottle condition it. Here's some bottling tips and guidelines. Tip number 1, get rid of those moldy bottles. Check each and every bottle for mold. Any sign, just chuck them out, as you always run the risk of infection. Tip number 2, and that's proper cleaning of bottles. All your bottles should be given a hot soak. Now I use Astonish Oxy Active Plus. It's a non-scented fabric stain remover. Now PBW or Oxy Clear will also do the trick, but most Oxy powders will do. It is essential to make sure that they are the unscented ones, unless you like the taste of detergent from your beer. After a 20 minute soak, I then give each bottle a good clean inside with a bottle brush and then rinse the bottle thoroughly. Tip number 3, sanitize your bottles. There's a couple of ways in which you can sanitize your bottles. I keep it simple but effective. I make up a solution of Star San, then dunk each and every bottle into the sanitizer. Tip number 4, cover those bottles. Use either tin foil or sanitized bottle caps to keep any bacteria, dust or particles looking for a bed for the night out of your bottle. Tip 5, calculate your priming sugar. Now this is one I see a fair bit on forums where someone is like, oh, I've effed up because I've either forgotten the priming sugar, I've added way too much or not enough. You've spent almost 6 hours brewing the beer, waited approximately 2 weeks for it to ferment, and now because of what? A simple oversight, the lot can end up down the drain. Most brewing software and apps such as the Grain Fodder app includes a priming calculator. Very easy to use. You basically choose your style, choose your bottling temperature, and then you choose the beer volume. So for my example, my unknown legend, it's an Imperial Stout, check, approximately 20 degrees Celsius, check. I want to bottle about 30 litres, check. The result for me then is to add 160 grams table sugar to get 2.2 volumes of CO2, or use 174 grams of corn sugar, aka dextrose, or 232 grams of DME. Now I'm going to go with the dextrose. Now one common mistake is to pour hot priming sugar mixture into the beer and then start bottling. Stop! Don't do that. What happens here, guys, is that you end up with some beers that are flat in the bottle and then other beers which are perfectly primed. That's what happens. Just leave it to cool for a little while before pouring it into your beer. As I said, yes, I am guilty of doing it in the past, but this is what, you're right there, Toby. This is what homebrew is all about. It's sharing of knowledge. Now, my tip number 6, once you've bottled your entire batch, my advice is to store warm and then store cold. Now, I generally store my beer away in a dark room at around 21 degrees Celsius for about 2 weeks. The beer will be ready in approximately 2 weeks, but remember, this is a Bourbon Imperial Stout. This should be aged or cellared, for want of better terminology, for a minimum of approximately 6 to 9 years, and then six to 9 months. Scrap that, not years. What happens here is the warm temperature encourages the yeast to eat the priming sugars, and that produces your CO2. It's important to remember that your yeast is a little bit stressed out at this point and a little bit all over the place, a little bit like myself. So you need to be your yeast's best friend. Once they've had a nice 2-week holiday away in a warm, dark room or cupboard, it'll be ready to try a sample. When you pop open the bottle, you should hear a hiss. The head should form well. Carbonation should be correct for that style. If your beer is a bit flat, fear not. Just send your beer away on another holiday for a week, and then after that week, test it, sample it again. If all's good, then it's time to send them off to an expedition to the Antarctic. Store them away cold until they're ready to consume. What this actually does is it extends their lifespan. Now guys, this is just a personal thing. Some beers aren't great for bottling, I've found, such as New England IPAs. You should keg these and similar styles if you can, and make sure to consume them fresh. Now, I'm about to go bottling. I've all my bottles washed. I just need to sanitize them and then we can go bottling. But before I do, let me take you back a week ago where I was adding the oak chips and trying a very first sample of this beer. So the glass I tend to use is one of these kind of long glasses with a bit of a scoop head on it. I can just stick it on there and push that up, and I will get rid of the first couple of milliliters that come out and take a cleaner sample. Does smell nice. Oh, coming out a bit faster. I do want to take it out as slow as possible, so ignore the speed that time. And I think I now have my sample. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to do a yeast dump. That's the great thing with the conical fermenter. So just want to get all that slurry out until it kind of until it starts running. There we go. A little bit more. Just clear it. Yeah, that's good. Drop in my hydrometer. Okay, so where are we at? Oh, okay. So, interesting. Okay, so I started off at 1.105 and I've got that down to 1.010, and I'm going to put my ABV on screen because I need to work that out. And that's my gravity reading. Now, the next thing I want to show you is this. Take a look at the color. It's brown, it's muddy, it's cloudy. It does not look anything like a stout. Earlier on, yesterday, I drew off a sample glass and I put it in the fridge. I'm going to get that now, and I'm going to sit it beside the sample that I just extracted a few moments ago. One sec. Now, it's exactly the same beer. I'm not saying this is black. Well, it's not black yet, but there's a mighty difference between what you see on your left-hand side to what you see on the right-hand side. So once I put the sample into the fridge, everything that's in suspension will drop out. You can see at the bottom you have a level of trub, and then beyond that then you have your yeast that has fallen out of the suspension, and then you have your beer. This beer, looking at it now, it's a dark brown, and I've panicked about that now in the past, going, oh my god, this isn't as black as I'd like it to be. The next thing I want to do is I want to now add my oak chips. And one thing as well that you should do is just taste the beer, to see. Obviously, this is going to be the warm one with all those particles in suspension. Tastes great. Wow, Jesus, it's really good. And then the cold one, which is going to be much more muted than this one here, I think. Sharp, sharp and bitter. Not overly bitter, but fairly drinkable. He says. So what's going to change the dimensions of this beer is the addition of the bourbon chips and the bourbon, and more importantly is aging. I will bottle this, and after bottling, after after conditions for a while, I will be trying it. I will be tasting it. I'll be taking a couple of notes, and then I'm going to cellar it. I'm going to basically just put it away until Christmas time, and then try it again and do a cross comparison on a few different aspects of the beer, because I do know, and I've done it before, I've aged this beer for 2 years, and if I haven't said already, the beer is exceptional if you leave it alone. It's a difficult thing to do as a home brewer to leave it alone. Put it with a friend, with a granny, with a granddad, with your parents. Just put it somewhere where you're not going to find it in easy reach, like moi. So now to add the bourbon chips. So I have my canister, my hop canister, and it's in some Star San. So we are good with that. I'm just going to sanitize my hands. Now, I want to do this really quickly. Take off my lid, get this bad boy ready. Oh, get this ready. Important. One more sniff before you say goodbye to it. And okay, here we go. Unfortunately, I don't have the multicam set up on this one, guys, because I just want to work very quickly. Okie doke. So I just put it over it. Slowly pour in the juice. Then the chips. When the chips are down, as they say. And then my lid. Doesn't matter that I don't have a string attached to this, because I know how long I'm going to leave this in for, maybe 5 days. and then I'm going bottling. So let's cut the black and then I'll see you on bottling. So here are all my bottles. I think I've about 60 500 milliliter bottles, all washed. And I just need to, as I said, sanitize them. Now, there are a couple of tools online. One, I think it's Brewer's Friend that I use to calculate how many bottles I need. So I have various different size bottles. I know I've 30 liters, and I'm like, oh, how many bottles will I need? And I always make sure I've more bottles than I actually need. Before I go bottling, one important thing now to do as well is to sample this beer. Say, anyone who's looking to get into YouTube and homebrew videos, it's always a good idea to leave your valuable lens under the valve of your fermenter so it drips on the lens. Colour, dark brown, a little bit concerned about that. Yeah, tastes fantastic. Okay, yeah. So I was supposed to leave the bourbon chips in for 5 days. I was supposed to do this video last night. Never got a chance to. Takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. So they've been in for 6 days, and that tastes fantastic. Should always taste your beer throughout the process. It's very important. This is a bit green. It's a Bourbon Imperial Stout. It's going to taste great in 2 weeks' time, but my God, it's going to taste so much better in 2 years' time. Will it last 2 years? No, it won't. You're kidding yourself, Glenn. So you just want to make sure that I've everything sanitized, and I mean everything. So from the output valve on the fermenter to all my hoses and my tubes, and inside this bucket that I have down on the ground. Okay, nothing happens. So my setup is generally 2 buckets. In this bucket here, I have my Star San solution, and I have a jug, and I have all my bottling caps. And over here, I basically have another bucket where I'm going to do the bottling, because sometimes the bottling gets a bit messy, and that's why I have this. That's why I have this bucket here. So measuring out my brewing sugar for priming, and I'm just letting this pot boil away with the lid on, just to sanitize it. So I'm just going to pop that into a bath of cold water to cool that down. Now, I just add this. Very slowly. Okay, so I'm just taking some bottles off my bottle tray. Then I'm just giving them a dunk into my sanitizer. What I do here is fill one up at a time, give it a little bit of a shake, pour that out, put it across. This already has sanitizer. So just really giving them a coating of the sanitizer. Just contact with Starsan, and that's the great thing. Turn back on my valve. Right up to the top. And it's just a case of grabbing a few bottle caps, sticking them on. Of course, sanitized bottle caps. A lot of fancy equipment these days for bottling. I know this is not so fancy, but do you know what? It does the job. Do I love bottling? Next question.